So in terms of like human design, transits and gates, I mean it's a really interesting combination. We've actually got the sun and the moon in the two gates that are right next to each other. So gate 11 and gate 12 in terms of number, but they're actually, as we know, on opposite sides of the zodiac. You can see on the human design chart, the body graph, that gate 11 is in the third eye, or the ajna, and then um, gate 12 is in the throat center. So it's the sort of the third eye, or the mind, and then the throat, so the throat chakra, that are being sort of activated. So it's very much about communication, which I think is and the way that we think, and our perception, which of course is what kind of Gemini and Sagittarius are all about. So that's kind of interesting. So the sun will be in gate 12, as I said, in the throat chakra, and essentially it's kind of interesting, because these two kind of gates are quite different to each other. So on the one hand, gate 12 is about hindrance, and this can be where we're kind of forced to slow down and take stock about something. So we're often inactive in word and deed, and that can sometimes be a good thing. It can make us slow down and not be as distracted, and very often it allows us to almost sort of like reboot or reset, and become aware of things that maybe we had sort of blocked out, or that we weren't necessarily aware of. And that this can be a good thing, because it can bring things back into focus. And so we start to kind of align more within ourselves, and then in turn we don't really speak until we're ready to speak. And that's an interesting one, because in terms of human design, if you don't normally have the throat center switched on, then you do tend to find it difficult to actually get people to listen to you unless you're asked. So you have to wait to be invited, in terms of like someone saying to you, what's your opinion on X or Y, or how do you feel about that, and then and then you've been given a sort of an opportunity to respond. So I think what it's saying is that when it comes to Gemini matters, so in other words, the more kind of the knowledge and the facts type of thing, the news, the gossip, the more kind of the politics, the novelty aspect, that it's a good time to actually slow down and take stock. So not being so distracted by our phones and what's going on externally, becoming a little bit more inactive, so that we can maybe ruminate a little bit more, and that when we're sort of ready to speak, then we can sort of speak, but not sort of before that. And what's also interesting is that it's part of the channel of openness, which runs between the throat and the emotion center. And of course, there's nothing in gate 22 at the moment to sort of activate that channel. So, but if somebody does have this particular gate activated, and they do ask you how you feel, then you may feel that when you do express your feelings, that you feel really heard, and that the other person really hears you. So I think the key thing here is to wait until you're asked or invited to sort of give your opinion, or to speak, and that way things will come out a lot better, and you'll have had time to think about how you feel or what you really want to say, and that means that your message will be received more favorably, if you like, or you'll make more of an impact, if you like. Now this gate is also known as the gate of romanticism, which I think is interesting, given all that that luminary, the T-square with the luminaries and Neptune. So this is about balancing this sort of the need to espouse ideas that promote social harmony, and sort of embrace beliefs that are kind of grounded in your present reality. So in other words, trying to sort of find the balance between your own needs and then those of society. And then this happens in line 1, which is known as standing still. So again, I think it's so interesting that we're coming up to the solstice, which is when the sun is supposed to stand still in the sky before turning. That's what sort of tropos means, this kind of idea of tropic, the tropics. And it's asking us to sort of appreciate how a harsh world can sometimes aid your inner sense of freedom. So in a way, it's about withdrawing from the mainstream, and that you may find that you relate with those with kind of special like-minded individuals who appreciate your individual needs or viewpoints. So it could be a time when, as I say, you do withdraw a little bit from the world, where you may need to take stock, and I think Saturn can be quite useful for this. Saturn in a way can be about being a little bit, what's the word, like set apart from, or detached from, or sometimes you can feel cut off from, but I'd say it's more about taking yourself away and thinking about things, and not necessarily feeling the need to express yourself all the time. So say being on social media all the time and sort of like, you can kind of get into that verbal diarrhea thing where you feel like you have to post all the time, or you have to have something to say. And I think it's really kind of giving you permission to just enjoy the silence, to be in your own thoughts, and to only really speak when invited to do so, when you feel you have something, that you want to say, something sort of like noteworthy or significant, or that type of thing. And then the moon is going to be in gate 11, which is to say is in the sort of the Ajna center. I realize I've mixed these two things up, that this is actually the throat and this is the Ajna. So the Ajna being the third eye. And this is all about attuning to each moment and pausing to envision and outline prospective futures that might defy previously accepted in mainstream ways. So fits, I think, really nicely with a lot of the fixed star aspects, where, as I say, there is this shift, particularly with Columba, into this more future-oriented energy. And sometimes we need to stop and imagine where we see ourselves going, particularly if we're moving into unknown territory. That we need to sort of imagine for ourselves where we would like to head, and then look at sort of prospective futures, that will move us towards change, and will maybe take us away from previously accepted ways of doing things that we may be disenchanted with, or that we feel we don't really want to kind of align ourselves with kind of going forward. So interestingly, this is part of the channel of curiosity, which normally connects between gate 11 and gate 56 here in the throat. And I think it's interesting, as I say, given that the moon is going to be in Sagittarius, that it's all about curiosity, which is a very Gemini type of energy. So really balancing those two qualities out, of kind of like curiosity and wanting to learn or take in information on the one hand, and then the need to express on the other. So I think it's sort of almost saying that it's time to kind of like be in receptive mode, where you kind of not really speaking a lot, where you're thinking about things, where you are imagining futures, where you are really in your kind of like almost your sort of your active planning or strategizing kind of mode, and then only when you feel ready to maybe kind of speaking, or even then not necessarily saying anything. Sometimes it's good to keep plans to yourself, particularly if you're worried about kind of naysayers or critics or people kind of putting you off. Sometimes it's better not to say anything and just to kind of go and do something and then surprise everybody, kind of later on. But from, I think this is Richard Rudd, he sees this particular gate as being about peace and ideas. So harmony comes from within and emanates out to the world. So this is real sense, as I say, of kind of moving into the internal domain, and of kind of working things out on that level, coming to terms with things, seeing things from a fresh perspective, re-envisaging where we see ourselves going, what we'd like to happen, and that small efforts can bring about large returns, I think, going forward. So I think this is really about kind of taking ourselves internally and, as I say, developing like a plan for ourselves, or getting clear about what we really believe, or assigning meaning to sort of events, and not necessarily feeling a strong urge to communicate unless we feel kind of called to. Now line 1, which is where the moon is going to be, is about complementing. So it's about progressing by aligning with your immediate environment. So getting really present, I think, with yourself, which fits quite well with the fact that the moon is going to be in the 4th house, in the private domain. So it says your ideas can come and go. Finding the right company in which to share them is important. Yes, so there's a lot here about finding like-minded people who kind of who are sympathetic to your point of view, or that you just feel you vibe with, that get you, and not necessarily feeling that you have to sort of be doing a lot of socializing or being out like in the public domain, that type of thing. That it's more about communing with a smaller group of people, or with your soul tribe, that type of thing. And with the moon, it can be about, yes, again, finding those who will appreciate and help you further your ideas and your plans. So it is about, as I say, getting smaller rather than bigger. It's moving more into the sort of the private domain, spending it with people that you love, with people who get you, people who understand you, and not necessarily feeling the need, as I say, to be kind of out in the world campaigning and persuading, or influencing, or that type of thing. That it's okay to kind of take a break from all that stuff. Maybe go on holiday, go on a spa break, all of that kind of stuff, so that you can get clear perspective on what you really think about certain things, and as I say, not really speak unless you're invited to do so, or you feel that you have something to say. So an interesting one, very interesting one.